question, Dave?
I was wondering what the specs are for electric vehicles on bike paths, if there's any rules as far as batteries or motor size, and what electric vehicles are allowed on the bike path.
No, just hold him up.
City paths and national paths, right? There's
Yeah,
different-
city and national paths, like the bike trails and stuff.
Hard to get out of.
Hello, all my friends. I hope you're having an outstanding, fabulous day. Thank you for tuning in to Frantic TV, and welcome back to Answers with Bruce. I am Bruce, and this is a show where I answer your questions about electric bikes, PEVs, and the electric mobility community at large. And today's question comes from Dave, who is in Washington, D.C. And Dave asks, what are the minimum specs for riding an electric bike, PEV, on city trails and national trails? Great question, because every place is different. There are more and more electric bike riders, more and more electric mobility devices and riders all over the place, and regulations are coming, stricter regulations, and it's good to know what the rules are now to help demonstrate that we don't need more strict rules and regulations. So let's dive into it. Let's answer Dave's question. First, let's talk about city trails, or it could even be suburban trails, neighborhood trails. The rules are going to vary depending on where you live. They can vary from town to town, from county to county, and they all vary from state to state. First, the federal government has defined what an e-bike is, and in general, it is a electric device with a motor of 750 watts or less. Now, many states have adopted that federal definition, and so many trails and many urban paths all rely on the definition of an e-bike is electric device with a motor that is 750 watts or less. And if your bike or mobility device is rated higher than that, it could be a classification of a moped or a motorcycle. It just all depends. The other federal definition that most states have adopted is with regards to Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3, and that is the speed of the bike. So most city trails and many pathways that allow regular bikes and e-bikes have speed limits, and many of them are 20 miles an hour or less. So if your electric mobility device can go faster than 20 miles an hour and you have the ability to set it to 20 miles an hour as a max speed, you should do that to avoid getting into trouble on the trail. In the United States, I do not know of any jurisdiction where authorities are checking the power of bikes, but I have seen videos from over on the other side of the pond over in Europe where the authorities actually have a mobile dyno machine where they ride and pull over bikes, and they put their bikes on this dyno machine to test the power of the e-bike. We don't have that in America, thank the Lord. The other criteria that many states and many jurisdictions have adopted from the federal standards as Class 1 or Class 2 e-bikes. Class 1 e-bikes are pedal assist only, and they don't have a throttle. Class 2 e-bikes do have a throttle, but their maximum speed is 20 miles an hour. And Class 3 e-bikes can go up to 28 miles an hour. Many trails do not allow speeds above 20 miles an hour. Where I live in Maryland, some of those speeds are 15 miles an hour. Where I live in Maryland, some of those trails require you to not use a throttle and to pedal to keep your speed up like a traditional bicycle. Another criteria that some jurisdictions are starting to adopt with regards to electric bikes, electric mobility devices on trails are weight. in Maryland, there are some trails that prohibit any electric bike over 100 pounds. And they're worried about the weight and having a collision with a pedestrian or another bicyclist and that extra weight causing more damage and more injury. So some jurisdictions, not only do you need to pay attention to the power of your electric mobility device, let's just say e-bike, and your speed, but also your weight. And remember, every jurisdiction has some variation. Every state has some variation. Every town has some variation. So pay attention to the rules and regulations for the trail that you're going on. And most importantly, ride in a safe and respectful manner. And regardless of what you're riding, you probably will be safe from being stopped. Now, let's discuss national trails, federal parklands, federal property. Many people do not know that in 2019, under President Trump, his administration passed rules and regulations that allow the use of electric mobility devices in and on national park land. And the premise and the reason for doing this was because the administration acknowledged that people have mobility issues, people have health issues, and electric bikes allow those individuals to be able to explore America's great natural resources. And that is the reason why in 2019, federal lands were opened up for electric bikes. However, the thing to remember is the federal definition of what an e-bike is applies to every piece of federal land. And so, without a doubt, the maximum power rating is 750 watts, and the class ratings apply. Every piece of federal land follows the federal definition of what an e-bike is. So on federal land and in federal parks, electric bikes, electric mobility devices are restricted somewhat more than on many urban trails, community trails, because of the goal of the federal government of trying to protect the natural resources. On some federal trails, you cannot even ride a regular bike. On some federal trails, you can ride a regular bike, but you are not allowed to ride an electric bike or an electric mobility device. On all federal lands and federal property, you are allowed to ride an electric mobility device anywhere vehicles are allowed to travel. So you still have to follow the 750 watt rule, but class 1, class 2, class 3, or whatever, you can ride it anywhere on federal property that an automobile or a gas-powered vehicle is allowed to travel. As far as I know, there are no weight restrictions with regards to federal land and electric mobility devices, simply the power limits and the class limits as well. So to summarize, most states and many jurisdictions follow the federal definition of what an electric bike is, 750 watts or less, and then also the classifications of class 1, class 2, and class 3. Most trails, urban trails, community trails, are capped with a maximum speed of 20 miles an hour. Some of them are 15. And some trails you have to pedal. You're not allowed to use your throttle. The most important thing to remember is to pay attention to the rules and regulations on the particular trail that you are going to ride. And also to remember that not every state follows the federal definition of what an e-bike is. And just to give you an example, Kansas, it's 1,000 watts. Rhode Island, it's 1,500 watts. Vermont, Virginia, 1,000 watts. In Mississippi, there is none. So not every state is a 750 watt state. When I see posts online about people saying your 1,000 watt bike's not an e-bike, that person does not know what the heck they're talking about, because not every state is a 750 watt state. So that's why you need to check your locality. You need to check the rules and regulations. The other thing to remember is this. Just because there's a sign there needs to be legal authority for it. So if you go to a trail and you see a sign that says no e-bikes allowed, that might not be a legitimate sign. Am I telling you to go on the trail? No, I'm telling you to investigate, because that sign may have no legal authority. Signs everywhere signs does not mean that they are legitimate signs. Does not mean they are legitimate rules, legitimate regulations. So do your research. The other important thing to remember is this. If you ride your electric bike, if you ride your electric mobility device in a safe and respectful manner, the odds are you will not be hassled. You will not be stopped. No one will say a word. I have over 3,000 miles on trails, and only one person has ever made a comment to me. I was on a trail in Pennsylvania, and I was not pedaling my electric bike, and it was a pedal-only trail. Now, I was coasting because there was pedestrians in front of me and traditional bicyclists coming from the opposite direction. So I stopped pedaling, and I was just coasting to allow the traditional bicyclists to pass the pedestrians and then for me to safely go around the pedestrians. It was actually a woman in that group of traditional bicyclists who screamed out, "You need to pedal!" Being the new Bruce, I did not respond. I just ignored her. Plus, there was little children also on the trail. That's happened one time in like 3,500 miles. So if you ride respectful and you ride safe, the odds are you will be fine regardless of what you have on the trail. Thanks again to Dave from Washington, D.C. for that great question. I hope you all got something out of this. And if you have a question that you want me to tackle, drop it in the comments or send it our way. And remember, boom, smash that subscribe, boom, smash that like, and ride safe, be smart, don't be stupid. Until next time, I love you all. See ya!